Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today for a few thoughts from the Bible. I've been reading through the book of Deuteronomy recently in my daily Bible reading plan, just in the last few days, and I found myself in chapter 12. It's a chapter that talks about how the Israelite people were supposed to worship God in one particular place once they entered into the promised land, and all of the rules and regulations that would go along with that worship. Amidst all of that information, there was one verse that I read that really jumped out at me, and I found it really quite astonishing. It's actually just part of a verse. It's Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 18, part 2. And it says, "You are to rejoice before the Lord your God in everything you put your hand to." You are to rejoice before the Lord your God in everything you put your hand to. Now, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 16 tells us to rejoice always. And I think that can sometimes be a difficult concept to grasp for us. How can we be rejoicing all the time, in every single moment, when things are hard, when things are good, and everything in between? Should we be living in denial and just saying, oh yes, everything's fine, everything's all good, like just plastering a smile on our faces to pretend that we're happy when actually things are really, really tough right now? Well, I think that this little part of a verse in Deuteronomy can help us here, because it tells us you are to rejoice before the Lord your God in everything you put your hand to. It gives us something tangible to focus that rejoicing on. And I just think it's such a wonderful thought. In everything you put your hand to, rejoice. Before you do anything, rejoice in it. We have so much to be joyful about, even if we don't always recognize it. You can be joyful that you are able to work, even if you're finding your job a little bit difficult right now. You can be joyful about the pile of dishes in the kitchen sink waiting to be washed because you just got to eat. You can be joyful about the gifts and the talents you have that you can use. You can be joyful for the time you get to spend with people, even if it's still predominantly online wherever you are in the world right now. I just love that thought about thinking of everything you put your hand to and then specifically finding joy in it all. You know, I recently started a new exercise program, and on one particular morning, I woke up feeling very, very aware of some muscles that I obviously hadn't been using all that much lately. And instead of groaning about it, as my default reaction might have been, I remembered that verse and I started to be joyful. I started to thank God that I have a body that I can use for exercise. That this muscular pain is evidence of my getting stronger. That even in the weakness I may feel in this painful muscle day to day, God can be my strength. There is always, always something to rejoice in. Even when we find ourselves in horrendous and painful situations, we can still rejoice. Because God is still with us, will not leave us, will never forsake us, will constantly strengthen us, will get us through this time, will teach us, even in the midst of our despair. Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Even if you're not sure how to do that, just think about what you are doing right now. What are you putting your hand to? Watching a video. Rejoice for the internet that allows this message to reach you from Uganda to wherever in the world you may be. It's such a great concept that we find in this verse because it's so focused. You can literally look at anything that you are doing right now and start to rejoice. I wonder how exciting and how filled with wonder our days would be if we took this advice and rejoiced in every single thing that we did. Not just the big, huge, monumental things, but even just the little things that we do in our everyday routines. Even those unpleasant but necessary tasks that we all have to do. What if we rejoiced in those instead of grumbling about them? Excuse me. Finally, though, this is more than just looking for the good in a situation to try and plaster on a fake sense of happiness. I don't have COVID, honestly. Just something in my throat. It's deeper than that. As this verse says, this is rejoicing before the Lord your God. It's not grudgingly saying, well, this situation is pretty bad, but I suppose this little part of it is okay and I can focus on that. It's lifting up praise for everything that you have the opportunity to do in this world, no matter how big or small those things may be. Rejoice before God. Lift up praise for those joyful aspects of the things in your life. It will make your days happier. I guarantee it, because you will start to see the good even in bad situations. And I genuinely believe that we can train our minds. We can be transformed by the renewing of our minds to look for those things that we can be joyful in. But more than that, as you rejoice in everything that you put your hand to today, it will help you to appreciate that God is working in your life, even right at this very, very moment. Thank you so much for joining me for today's thought from the Bible. I'll be back on Friday with another video, so I will see you then.